Hey, what's up, everybody? On this week's episode of Movie Time, Creed 3 is the big movie to come out in theaters this week. Blake and I saw it, and we're going to give our thoughts and opinions about it. How does it rank with all the other Creed movies, and how does it rank among the Rocky franchise? Definitely, we'll be talking about that. Big Lebowski turns 25, and Blake and I were able to catch up on some movies recently, so all that good stuff will be covered in this episode. So all you got to do, sit back, relax, grab your favorite snack. You know what time it is. It's movie time coming at you now. Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back. The Movie Bros are back again for another episode of Movie Time. Got myself here, Rene, LOWKEY, GEEK, and my buddy, Blake the Wolf. What's going on, dude?
Rene, I am so glad to be here. To paraphrase the inimitable, nailed it, Rocky Balboa.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
here because I can't sing or dance, and that's
Ah,
why I got to do this. That's why I got to talk about movies. So, how are you doing, man? You ready to get into this?
sweet reference. Yes, I am definitely ready to get into this. As you know, you should know by now by seeing the title of this episode. Creed 3 is the big movie that is coming out this week. Blake and I had a chance to watch it. And of course, as always, we are going to give our thoughts and review of the movie. How does it stack up with the rest of the Creeds and all that goodness? So we're really excited to talk about that. And we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that we caught up on as well this week. Again, Oscars are literally right around the corner. We were just talking offline about prepping for the Oscars. That's really literally happening in about like a week, like a little over a week. So a lot of stuff gone down. We had the SAG Awards just recently. We had so many different awards that happened from our last episode, and I think there is a clear indication of what's going to turn out. So I can't wait to talk more about that. We'll be recording, just to give you guys a heads up, a separate special episode that will basically have us filling out our Oscar ballots, kind of like what we did last year. If you're here, subscribe to the channel last year. We did an episode where we, like what but Blake and I do all the time. It's like we would just sit down, fill out our ballots, and we kind of do our own predictions as to who's going to win in every category for the Oscars. So if you're interested to see that, stay tuned to the channel, and we'll definitely have that episode ready for you just in time for the Oscars. But before we go on and talk about all the things that we're going to be talking about in this episode, if you're brand new to this channel and you're seeing or hearing us for the very first time, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Movie Time podcast, where we basically sit down, two buddies talking about movies. We are a movie review podcast where every week we talk about whatever the newest or latest release is, and we just talk about other stuff as far as movies are concerned. So if you like this, if you like the topic, if you like the stuff that we talk about, and you want to see more of this type of content, all you got to do is hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, hit that notification bell so you get notified every time a new video is uploaded. For the audio listeners out there, thank you again so much for listening. If you want an audio version of this episode, just type in LOWKEY GEEK on your podcast platform of choice, where you can download this and many other episodes there for your listening pleasure. So, as we do every week, we like to kind of play catch up and see what each of us have been watching or not watching, or whatever the case is. So, I'll have you start this time, Blake. What have you been catching up on? Yeah.
I mean, here's where you're going to want to hit subscribe for before the next episode where we do our Oscar ballots. I like to see every single Oscar
Yep.
movie. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a couple years ago, I got every single movie correct, except like the short film categories. But like, what is that? It was literally the year before Rene and I started doing this, and he still doubts it. I have proof. Anyway, that's why this week I saw Living, the Bill Nye
Oh,
vehicle,
okay.
where he got nominated because he's due Oscar nomination.
Sure.
From everything I could tell, I went into the movie clear-eyed. Maybe this will be great, and it was exactly what I thought it would be. He's playing an old man who's barely speaks, barely moves, is just going through his day-to-day life like an automaton in 1960s England, meets a young woman who gives him a spark and passion for life. There's a moment where you're like, is this going to get spicy? It reminds me a lot of Peter O'Toole's nomination from
Oh yeah.
the 2007, where he got nominated for Best Actor on that one,
Mhm.
and it's this very similar situation and a very similar reason they got nominated because they just don't have an Oscar, and
Sure.
we're giving them the flowers while they're still here. It was fine if you're into that kind of thing. Honestly, it was cute. It was well directed. It was well written. I laughed multiple times. It was like that clever, witty British stuff.
Mhm.
At no point was my heart pounding out of my chest. At no point did I pump my fist. And usually on the Movie Time episodes, we talk about just new shit, the Cocaine
Yeah.
Bears, the Creed threes, and every now and then we're blessed with an Everything Everywhere, which talking about reward stuff like that's going to be all over the ballots also. So
Yeah, for sure.
um, if you're a betting person, if you're filling out a ballot, or if you're just a fiend like me, definitely stay tuned because we're about to get hardcore into the Oscar season, and that's why I saw the movie Living.
So would you say it's a movie about a guy living?
Yeah, it's definitely he is.
Ah,
Well, I'm gonna go and spoiler alert this.
that's fine.
If you like, skip 30 seconds if you're about to go see Living. There's a part of the movie where he's not living. And
Oh.
yeah. Because he the thing is he realizes he's dying. And that's why he's got to
Oh.
live. It's not actually about the meeting the young woman. It's just like the young woman
I
helps him
see.
on his adventures. He's like, show me how to live. You're full of life. Just kind of like quits his job. And then he goes through all the things like, oh, I want to just have fun. I just want to get drunk. How do we kill time? And it's asking
Mhm.
the question, what are we doing on this planet? And it actually does a pretty good job at that. And then at some
Yeah.
point he decides he's going to do good for other people. So who gives a shit? It was fine. It was good. It was cool. It was great. It was fine. There are other, we talked about him in our, what the Oscar nominees that should have been. There were a
Yeah.
bunch of other performances that definitely deserved it more, but he's due for a nomination. And we'll get to see him graciously nod as someone else takes the
Right.
stage on Oscar
Yeah.
night.
And maybe clap and whatever the case is. Because there was a similar situation. I don't know. Did you have a chance to see the SAG Awards?
I did not watch them. No.
Okay.
I've been listening to a lot of content about
Oh,
them.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
watched
mean,
some speeches from it. Can't help
yeah.
myself.
I think next year we should plan on covering it because I actually enjoyed watching it, to be honest with you.
Those are great. Like
Yeah.
that is to me, between like BAFTAs, Globes, whatever
Hmm.
else. Those to me are the most exciting one. You basically have a bunch of celebrities in the room rewarding each other, and they're getting nods from their peers, which always means more than getting it
Yeah.
from just whoever else is in the academy. So like even in Michelle Yeoh's speech, she's getting emotional, and
Yeah.
I've heard folks say this one technically means more to them. It's not as prestigious
Yeah.
necessarily, but it has more impact on emotionally for the winners because they go, oh my goodness, my peers who I'm working with and who I love and I'm passionate, we're in a
Yeah.
union together, we've got each other's backs, they have shown love, and that's special.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because yeah, all of that is true. And it's kind of like, when you work in an office environment and you get given an award for best attendance or whatever stupid stuff that they do at offices and office parties.
Okay, Renee, yeah, that's an example of an award that they might give someone. Okay.
Well, okay. If you all didn't know, Blake and we worked together at one point, and we worked together for quite a bit. I think it was like a good 2 years, right? Two or
Yeah,
or 3 years, maybe. I don't know.
a
Um,
great couple years. Yeah.
yeah, and we've gone through these kind of things, and I don't know if you were there when I was awarded the Night Owl Award.
Uh-huh.
Bas- Basically, it's an award for someone who works late at night, like overtime and stuff like that. And I'm like, yay, you recognize that I'm a hard worker, so where's my money? And of course, the dude just laughs and kind of just shrugs it off and everything like that.
You got an award. What are you talking about? No, I thought they gave you that because of your bulging eyeballs. It was because you work late.
Yeah.
And why did you work late, Renee? What time did your day start? Let's not get
Well,
into
my
it. We can't do office gossip here.
it's
But
fine.
knowing
Yeah.
Renee behind the scenes is quite a retreat. Let me tell you that. That's how we started this whole thing. Is we were just vibing on our lunch breaks,
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
movie time
Well, I mean,
before there was
it
movie
just
time.
it helped us stay sane, because like there were days where we were just like losing our minds because of all the craziness happening at the office, right? So it definitely helped us kept going.
I'm glad I was there to inspire you, Renee.
Oh, definitely, yeah, for sure.
Speaking of which, what have you been seeing lately? Which is the question we
Yes,
always ask each other when we see each other.
no, absolutely. So, well, there was I brought up the SAG Awards only because, yeah, I think next year we should cover it. Number two, Bill Nye was there, and when he lost, obviously he did they had the whole camera on him thing, and he was like clapping, and it looked like he was so bored. First of all, I think he knew he wasn't going to win, so he was just there,
He's
just
just been
like
held hostage in these fancy parties,
yeah,
and I'm assuming, at least based on his character in Love Actually, this guy likes to party. He's like, "Yep,
right,
is it after party time or no? I have enough money. I could have a lot of fun tonight. I just can't wait for this thing to end." Just
yeah,
being stuck and watching other people win. You're like, "Please don't nominate me. Why?
yeah,
Why?"
yeah, yeah. Um,
Oh,
yeah, there
poor
was
Bill.
another actress who looked like she was miserable there. I'm not going to mention her and talk about her now. Maybe we could talk about that in our Oscar ballot episode, but she just looked so miserable and she was just not having it. But anyway, I really like that awards ceremony, and I loved how they paid tribute to. I forgot who's the older Chinese actor is, but he's been in everything. I remember. But it was so nice to hear his speech, and yeah, that was like so cool. So
James Hong has got a lot of
that's
love, and
it.
it was nice to
Yeah,
see that when
yeah,
it's one of those it's past due, and that's part of what we're talking about with like everything everywhere, their
yeah.
momentum and their love fest that they keep having. It's
Hmm.
so nice to see when they do that, and he's the main cast member who hasn't been nominated, and so
Yeah,
seeing him get love like that's been seeing him get love like that was delightful. That was a special
yeah.
place to do it too.
No, it was great. So yeah, so if you are subscribed to the channel and you happen to stick with us for like another year, and we hope you do, we're definitely going to be covering the SAG Awards next year because I think it's a fun ceremony. It's a fun thing to watch, and plus, it's on YouTube, so we could easily just cover it, commentate on it, and all that stuff like that, and easy peasy and all that. I do like the fact that they partnered up with Netflix too to kind of show it on the
Other way
platform.
My
What
understanding
do you
is
mean?
next year it's on Netflix, but because Netflix wasn't ready to do live content yet, they put it on Netflix's YouTube channel.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
situation. So next year it will
yeah.
be a Netflix thing, but
It will
still,
just
either
be on
way.
Netflix. Yeah, but it's still
And
it's
maybe they'll
so
do it both. I don't know. They're still
yeah.
figuring it out.
It'll be easily accessible to a lot of people, and I think that that's really the key point there. And
Their
if
numbers were
anything,
great. By the
yeah,
morning after, they matched their numbers from last year, and that's nice to see because you don't get good news on award show viewing numbers
yeah,
lately.
yeah,
It's
and
been
I
about a
think and
decade, so that was nice.
yeah, and I think if anything, this should be a sign to the Academy that maybe network television isn't the route to take anymore. If especially if they're worried about numbers and views and all that stuff like that, maybe partnering up with a platform like Netflix or something could be the route to go. Um, who knows? We'll see. But I just thought they did a great job, and that's really it shows you how an award ceremony could go if it's done in a way where they're not worried about advertisers, they're not worried about all that other stuff like that. The one thing I will say though, and then I'll move on to what I watched. I thought it was hilarious when every time they had a mini break, which wasn't really a commercial break, but everyone was like walking around and the presenters had to wait for everyone to sit down. It became a little painful sometimes where they're like, all right, everyone take your seats. We're continuing the show right now. And it had to wait. So I thought that was like pretty funny. But as far as like what I watched, so I didn't watch anything Oscar related this past week. I did rewatch Creed 2, which I think was very key going into Creed 3, and we'll talk about that later. But what I did get a chance to watch is I saw an advanced screening of the new movie Champions, the Bobby Farrelly movie that is coming out in a week, starring Woody Harrelson, Caitlin Olsen, the duo there. And the one thing I will say is, prior to seeing the movie, I was curious about this movie. You know, the Farrelly brothers have been synonymous for comedy movies in the 90s. You know, there's something about Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene. So many like hits, but also a lot of misses. One thing I also kind of worried about too was that their brand of humor was good for a certain period. That stuff doesn't really necessarily track today, right? And I was a little worried going into this, especially because of the subject matter, where it could be very cringeworthy. It could be another The Ringer situation. And if you don't know what that is, The Ringer is a movie that Johnny Knoxville did. Almost similar premise, except it involves really the Special Olympics. And the biggest controversy there was that you had actual, real, non-disabled actors playing intellectually disabled people, and that was like a major, kind of controversy. You still had intellectually disabled actors in the movie, but it was like a half and half thing. In this movie, all the intellectual disabled people are actually intellectually disabled, and they're all either actors or people that they had hired to be in the movie. And the one thing that I appreciated that they did was that they put the light on them, with their disabilities earlier on. But then as soon as they did that, they totally forgot it afterwards. And everyone was just people. And I thought that was the key thing that they needed to do there, and not harp on it and make fun of it the whole time, because you kind of get laughs about their quirkiness, and like, this guy, he does this, and this guy, he does that. That's kind of what he does. Get that out of the way early. Don't harp on it throughout the whole movie, and then the rest of the movie was just basically Woody Harrelson learning how to work and coach a team that actually didn't even want him there, and all that stuff like that. So it became very heartwarming, very touching. It became like really like one of those like comedic dramas, where you would have normally have seen this like in one of the older sports related movies like The Replacements, or I could name so many different other sports movies that had similar situations, right? Where by the end of the movie, yeah, totally, yeah. Yes, yeah. And at the end of the movie, everyone gets together, everyone's in love with each other, everyone's our friends, they're old friends, and obviously they keep going doing what they're doing and all that stuff like that. I'm not gonna spoil anything now, but I was pleasantly surprised on how much I actually enjoyed it. It's not a great movie, but it was for something again that I was on the fence on. I'm actually really happy that I had a chance to see it, because it made me realize, oh, you know what? This is actually a pretty decent movie. And I think people will get a kick out of it when they decide to watch it. Is it a cinema movie? No. Do you have to go to the movie theaters to watch it? No. I think this is like a perfect Netflix, Apple Plus TV, that type of platform movie that you could just watch from home. And I think it'll be just as good as my experience was when I saw it in the theater. The reason why I got a chance to see it too was because Regal does these like mystery movie nights where they kind of like they choose a Monday during the month, and they are allowed to advance screen a movie that's coming out soon. But the thing is, they don't tell you what it is, so it's like a mystery thing. And I've been to several of these already. This is probably the most packed I've been. I've been at one of these. Like the theater was actually pretty packed for this showing, for a movie that not a lot of people know what's happening, right? And then number two, when people found out what movie it was, normally in the past I've seen a good amount of people leave. They're like, I don't want to watch this. Like,
wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Spirited. Spirited was one of those where I saw it in the theater, and like half the theater left. They're like, wow. I don't want to see this musical, all that kind of stuff. That in this showing, I'm talking about like a good 70% packed house. Two people left, only two. Everyone else stuck around and watched, and people were laughing and they were like kind of cheering at the end and all that. So I think people were also surprised on how much they enjoyed and liked this movie a lot. So that should say something for this movie. And I think, again, the people that I was with are more of your general audience. So I think this movie will do well, not at the box office, but I think if people give it a chance once they hit streaming. So I was really, really happy I had a chance to see it. Were you familiar with this movie about it coming out? Or, you know?
Familiar with it, and also the Woody Harrelson on SNL. I'm an SNL
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Most of all,
Mm-hmm.
though, I grew up playing sports, and those were
Mm-hmm.
like my favorite movies growing
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Which I'm glad we're going to get into Creed 3 because goodness
Yeah.
gracious, if I wasn't raised on Rocky movies, and those were super significant, and the ones I listed earlier on and on, I saw the poster and thought, oh no, Woody Harrelson's taking a step back from Triangle of Sadness, and thinking
Right.
it might be more one of those. I'm thinking like Benchwarmers, the John Hader, Rob Schneider type, or Basketball. It
Right.
was like looking like it
Right. Right.
might be that genre,
Yeah.
and I'm glad to hear it's at least not horrid National Lampoon late era trash. So that's promising. I can't help myself but watch a sports movie,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, more likely to see it now after you told me about it. So thank you, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you stuck it out. Then it sounds like it wasn't, at least it wasn't the absolute trash that I was worried it was when I saw the poster. I didn't even know what the plot or what it was about or the team or anything. It was just like
Right.
Woody Harrelson sports movie. Like, okay. Because it's not the best genre, which I mean, again, we're
No.
gonna get into Creed 3 in a second. It's
Yeah.
a tough genre to make great movies in. It's just like, it's kind of like horror or something like that, where like a lot of people are gonna
Mm,
go see it because people like sports, they like the subject matter.
yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you know once I check that one out.
Yeah, and like I said, it is. I mean, I know you enjoy going into the theater and watching movies there. You don't necessarily have to with this one. Like it'll be just as good watching it from home. So I will say like it's not one of those you have to rush out into the theater to watch it, but give it a shot. I would say give it a shot. The performances were really good. Of course, Woody's Woody. I thought he did a really good job. I'm not familiar with Caitlin Olsen, and I thought she did a pretty good job in it too. But everyone else was actually really good. Cheech Marin is in it. I thought he did a good job. Ernie Hudson, those of you who are Ghostbusters fans will know, he did a pretty good job in it. There is one actress though that was brilliant. I'm not going to mention who she is, but when you watch it, you'll know who I'm talking about. Every time she's on the screen, she steals the moment 100%, and she is brilliant. So every time she was on the screen, she said something. The lady next to me was always cheering, hooting and hollering because she's like, "Yeah, you go, girl! I love her." She'll be like that the whole time because she definitely has sass and attitude, which is great. So yeah, so that's Champions right there. And like I said, it could have gone a whole different way, and it could have been like a very cringy type of movie. But I'm glad that it didn't turn out to be that way. So yeah, so those of you who are listening and watching, let me know if that is a movie that might interest you. Maybe that's a movie that you're willing to see. And yeah, let us know in the comments about all that. Before we get into our Creed discussion, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention that The Big Lebowski is celebrating its 25th anniversary. It's kind of shocking that it's been 25 years that The Big Lebowski came out. And I remember watching this movie in the theater. And it's also kind of good timing, too, because we were talking about the SAG Awards, and Sam Elliott just won an award there. And he actually is a prominent figure in this movie. He's like the narrator of the movie. And I thought he did like a really good job. But obviously, Big Lebowski, you got oh my god, I am blanking on his name right now. Who plays
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges? There you go. Who is actually really big right now because of the show Old Man that a lot of people were praising and all that stuff like that. But yeah, I saw this in the movie theater 25 years ago, and I wanted to bring this up too because it's actually a pretty funny story. This was definitely during the time when I was starting to get really more into non-blockbuster, all sci-fi, all that stuff like that. This is when my horizons on movies started really, really opening up. I'm like several years like into after watching like Pulp Fiction, Clerks, all that stuff, and I'm like, wow, movies can be like this. Now I want to see like more. I think Rushmore came out just before this too, I believe, or around the same time. So you could kind of see where my mindset was. And I was like, I am so fascinated and interested in seeing all these other movies from all these different type of directors, and I recommended it to two of my friends, and we all went together. The three of us went together. About 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the movie, they left. And they just decided to leave me in the theater. Like, we can't take this movie right now. And I was like, what? I was like, give it a chance. It's like, no. It's like, we're gonna go to the mall. Let us know when you're done. And I'm like, I don't think they were just offended. Yeah, it just they were not. I think that's really what it was. Yeah, it was maybe too quirky for them, or it was. I mean, at that point, you already had the meeting with Donnie and Jesus, and so you're learning about the regular crew that he hangs out with, his little like uh dudisms and all that kind of stuff like that. And I was eating it all up. I was like, this movie is so brilliant, and it's really funny. Yeah, it's a little out there, but I mean, that's I think that was done on purpose, because here's this guy who lives such a simple life, right? He has like these simple pleasures, and he gets himself into these unique circumstances that you know no one would ever thought he would get into, and it's the dude just trying to get out of these circumstances and how he handles all that stuff. And it's like you follow him through all these adventures, all the different people that he meets, the little ransom and all that stuff like that. And then the unfortunate dying of Donnie outside of the bowling alley with the confrontation and everything. I mean, everything was pretty absurd, and I loved it. And I think that's one of those movies that really introduced like absurdity to me, on another level, because I think it's easy to say that like Pulp Fiction is a pretty absurd movie when you look at it, right? And when you watch it. But Lebowski was even more so in a different way. And I learned, I was like, wow, movies like this are magical for me. And I really, really appreciate it right away. A lot of people I've heard hated the movie when they first watched it. And then they gave it another chance later on, and they're like, wait a minute, now we get it and all that. But me, it got me right away. What is your experience, Blake, watching Lebowski, and what were your thoughts on it?
So I would have been too young for Lebowski when it came
Ah,
out, but I was aware of
okay.
it by the time we're hitting high school.
Hmm.
And part of my only issue with Lebowski is it was overhyped. The
Ah,
friend group I found myself getting into in high school are the exact people who made this a cult movie. To
gotcha.
use the Paris phrase line, the motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads, they all
Hmm.
adore him. They think he's a righteous dude, and that's how all of those folks, the skaters and the punks and the crust punks and everybody, like that's how they all felt about Big Lebowski. It was one of those dorm room poster movies by that
Yeah.
point. So I had the opposite experience. I think yours might have actually helped, where you're seeing people get turned away, and it's like, oh, that
Hmm.
makes it even cooler,
Yeah.
edgier. My experience was the opposite. It was so overhyped. I was thinking like this movie is going to change my life. And
Okay.
I think I finally saw it in college, and I was like, oh yeah, that was good. That was entertaining. I liked it. I thought it was good. I love the Cohen brothers. It's
Yeah.
kind of sad, like their career in the last, we're looking at 10
Yeah.
years since their last like proper hit with Inside Llewyn Davis, and even that's more of like a critic's choice.
Right.
Before that, it's like No Country for Old Men 2017, kind of like the last time it was a knockout of the park. Everyone's going to the theater to see their movies, but they
Yeah.
have like it's very easy for me to put a couple few of their movies in my top 20 movies all time. So I like Lebowski. I enjoyed it. Not trying to say anything against Lebowski at all. I think you seeing it the way you did, where you're in a theater and folks are walking out, is going to make you appreciate it even more. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. That's 20. You said 25 years.
25
Is that
years. Yeah.
okay? That's the anniversary. Goodness, but yeah, that's awesome. It's a classic, and it's I think it has a reputation as a big cult classic
Mhm.
now,
Yeah,
and
now
a
for sure.
beloved movie. What'd you say?
I said now for sure. Yeah. More
Yeah,
so than
yeah.
it was back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go into it, just know that it's a weird movie, and at the time, there weren't many movies like this being made on this level, and
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like you said, like it introduced me to the Coen brothers. And because of this movie, I went back and I watched Fargo because Fargo came out 2 years prior. And I was like, why haven't I seen this movie before? It was like a revelation for me, you know. And I remember again falling in love with that movie too. And you know, then just every time they would come out with another movie, I would just eagerly anticipate it. You know, I know after Lebowski, they came up with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Then, like you said, No Country for Old Men. True Grit, I thought was brilliant too. I really, really love that movie. And I forgot, or I had to be reminded that they also did Raising Arizona, which is like a very huge classic from the 80s that I also really enjoyed, but I didn't make that connection back then. Because again, I was not into like the directors and all that stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is a cool movie. Nick Cage, man, he's the man, you know, all that stuff like that. But then once I really started to learn about that stuff and get more immersed in it, then I was like, wow, okay, now I get it. Now I'm understanding all that stuff like that. So yeah. So let us know in the comments. Big Lebowski. Was that a movie that you were into? Is that a movie like? Did you have a similar experience like I did, where maybe you saw it for the first time, you didn't know anything about it, you didn't hear anything about it, and you're just like, whoa, what was this? Or did you have a similar experience like Blake, which I'm sure a lot of people probably have, where you just heard so many people talk about it and praise it and all that, and then when you watch it, you're like, wait a minute, I don't get it. Like, why do people love this movie so much? Let us know in the comments because I know this is the type of movie that affects people differently for sure. And I've heard all sides of the spectrum. Either they really hated it, they really loved it, or they were kind of like in the middle and all that stuff like that. So yeah, definitely let us know in the comments as we celebrate 25 years of The Big Lebowski. So since we're talking about Creed and we all know Creed comes from the Rocky universe, look at these awesome Rocky t-shirts that you could possibly get yourself. You have everything from Mr. T, you have the OG Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed. You know, you have these nice, oh, look at that. You do have Creed shirts here as well. Creed versus Dame, newly added. Look at that. Just in time for this movie that we're going to be talking about. Of course, you have Rocky. And, ooh, look at this. The Italian Stallion Rocky in a GTA form. Look, if any of these shirts look great for you, then definitely check out 80stees.com. Special link in the description below. Get yourself something cool, and you're going to be helping support the channel as well. So, whether you're a fan of the 80s, 90s, or all the other E's, you could find something else that will be really cool for you. Or if you're just a fan of Rocky and you want some of these Rocky shirts, why don't you grab something for yourself or for a loved one right now? Again, link in the description below. Find yourself your next nostalgic fit. All that said, ding, ding, ding.
Speaking of classics,
Let's get ready to rumble in the jungle, in Africa, on the streets. I don't know where we're going to be rumbling, but we're going to be rumbling
Los
here.
Angeles,
Los
the battle for
Angeles.
Los Angeles,
The battle
what?
for LA.
They did talk about the Rumble in the Jungle early
They
on,
did.
but yes,
Yeah.
the battle for the soul of Los Angeles.
The soul, the heart, you know, the king of LA, and that is Creed 3. Michael B.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan's directorial debut. So starring, of course, Jonathan Majors, Tessa Thompson, Wood Harris, Felicia Rashad. You know, the same usual cast of characters that you were familiar with in the previous Creed movies. Well, of course, Jonathan Majors being the new one. Also, a big shout out to Mila Davis Kent, who plays the daughter. So, just to briefly, kind of recap the premise of the movie without spoiling anything just yet. You have Creed, who is uh, they don't really mention this in the trailer, so I don't really want to say. But let's just say that he finds himself in a different stage of his career, and he comes across a childhood friend that he totally, forgot about, that they used to roll together, but was in jail, recently got out, and now this kid, the his friend, has a major chip on his shoulder, major because it's Jonathan Majors, um,
Mm-mm.
huge chip on his shoulder, and he wants the championship because he claims that that should have been me. I'm in jail watching you get all these accolades that should have happened to me instead. So I'm gonna be the champ. I'm gonna take it back and all that. And that's basically the premise of the movie and all that. I am going to let you go into your first initial thoughts and opinions of the movie, because the last time we talked about it on an episode, you didn't want anything spoiled. I remember you're like, I
Yeah,
love the Creed movies, I love
yeah,
the Rocky movies. I would kind
yeah.
of want to go into it fresh. I only saw the one trailer, and that's all I wanted to say. So, with all that being said, how was your reaction to the movie? How was your theater reaction? How was your experience and overall thoughts?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, was raised on the Rocky movies. I was young when they came out, and I think in not when they came out. I was young when I binge watched them because all first five had been out. Even in middle school, I was like, Rocky Five's not a good movie, right? Like I'd seen like 100 movies in my life. I was like, that's a bad one. Other than that, number four was my favorite. I love the If He Dies, He Dies, Ivan Drago movie. That's a debate we can have. Name a time and place, and I'll have it.
Right.
That said, grew up on him, and then Rocky Balboa comes out, Rocky
Mm-hmm.
Six, if you will, as I'm an adult, and I was pleasantly surprised by that
Yeah.
one. I know a lot of folks were like, "Wait, was that the best Rocky movie somehow?" Even though you're thinking it might just be trying to cash a check. And then I'm full all in on Michael B. Jordan after the movie Chronicle, and Ryan Coogler doing movies after Fruitvale Station, and I think it
Yeah.
goes Fruitvale Station, Black Panther, Creed, maybe. So maybe there's another one I'm missing there. But at that point, I'm all in on the possibility of a Creed movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
Hyped for it, and then I see it and was fully into it, to the point the debate is now like, is this the best Rocky movie of all time in
Right.
the Rocky cinematic universe, the RCU? I
Nice. I like that.
loved. Thank you. I loved Creed. I think I could be wrong if I'm missing anything else major, but I think that is at that point Michael B. Jordan's headline career, a movie of his career at that point, and it is
Yeah.
fully. We knew he's got star potential. We knew he's got charisma. At that point, he is a full blown front of the movie poster star, and the movie is a success critically, box office, etc. Then Creed 2 is happening. It's changing hands of directors.
Mhm.
I remember saying that was a fine boxing movie. I enjoy boxing movies in general. I like boxing. I not only am I a sports fan, I enjoy watching boxing matches. I just remember thinking afterward, like, okay, that was more of a cash the check sequel to Creed. They're going to make it anyway, and not fully loving it. So when Creed 3 is announced, I know I'm still going to go see it. I'm in regardless. My expectations are definitely lower at that point.
Mhm.
Like you said, saw a trailer, said, I'm going to go see this no matter what. Don't want to know what's what. Jonathan Majors was unavoidable. This is the year of the Jonathan Majors movie,
What a
and
year.
he's on movie posters himself. Like,
Yeah.
this dude is full blown movie star.
Oh yeah.
Love to see it. And that's all I knew going into it. I show up. I'm about 10 minutes late, but we still got trailers. There's a line in front of me for the popcorn. There's about 10 to 15 a group of 10 to 15 young to middle-aged men who are very aggressive energy, just clogging up the line, yelling at each other, pulling pranks on each other, kind of like just
Okay.
some real old school New York bro energy. I don't know how else to
Uh.
describe it. I was fully peeved at that moment. I was like, okay, and then they have now taken the entire front row, including my seat. I was like,
Oh
I'm not going to
no.
let this ruin my day. I'm not going to engage
Yeah.
because I know that these dudes would love, like, they all seemed at least half drunk. So I just went, found a seat in the middle in the back. The theater was quarter full, but it was the late showing. So folks who
Mhm.
were excited to go see Creed 3 probably saw this 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. This was the
Yeah.
10:45 in a theater a little out of the way.
Yeah.
Still a decent showing for that time on an opening night. Sit kind of middle of the back, just minding my business, happy to be away from that group. And lo and behold, they talked the entire movie. Their phones were
Oh,
out. They're yelling at each other. They're making jokes, saying inappropriate things at every single actor who comes on the screen, etc.
jeez.
Let me tell you this: couldn't take the experience away. I loved Creed 3. I had a great
Okay.
time. It was more like a fight night vibe because of the raucous crowd. So I think in a way that added to it. My guess, just going on hunches, that these dudes are like in a boxing gym together or something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know, but there was something about the energy of that crowd. There were multiple
Mhm.
times they all applauded together. So even though they were like not fully in the movie, they were definitely into every time there was a boxing scene. We had people yelling like, "Oh damn! Oh shit! Okay, go no with the left!" Like fully into it, and that actually
Yeah.
added to it. Like if you could see this at MSG with a bunch of boxing fans, that might be the best way to watch this movie, unlike
Right.
all other movies ever. So maybe that helped.
Sure.
Um, the sound, this movie is really good about sound. Michael B.
Mhm.
Jordan did a couple special things, and he had a couple tricks up his sleeve with how he handled the directing of this movie and
Yeah.
the direction of these characters' lives. I did enjoy how this one felt more intense than some of them. To me, when I'm watching a boxing movie, the first Rocky, I rewatched it last week. I had a friend who'd never seen it before, and we were going to go see Creed 3 together. He'd never seen any of the Rockies, and he's a sports and movie loving dude. I was like, how, just come over, put it on. And he enjoyed it. He goes, I see why this is a classic, but also it's a pretty slow movie. We're not getting into fighting
It's a drama.
until I want to say halfway. Yeah, it's much more of a drama
It's
that
a
happens
drama.
to have a boxing match at the end.
Yeah.
As time goes on, we start to get ones where there's two fights in it and
Sure.
lives are at stake. And we're seeing giant rises and falls of careers, Greek mythology level, and the action being two fights plus a street fight on the side and all
Right.
that. I, as someone who enjoys boxing, don't mind that. If you have a weak stomach, like I know my mom loves movies but can't stand watching people get punched and bloodied, don't you're not going to like this one. This one
Mhm.
is just as intense as the more recent ones, which was another reason why I really liked Creed and what they did. The problem is the editing on the old Rocky movies. They were good at the time. They hold up, but the editing is kind of whack compared to modern fight standards
Sure.
because you see them cut right before a punch lands
Yeah.
and the sound effects are a little cornier, etc. These movies, they fully bring you in to the experience, the sound, the visuals, the intensity of it, the slow mo when you're watching bodies, every muscle ripples, and there's a moment where someone gets a belly shot and you see the slow mo sweat fly off of their back after the
Mhm.
stomach ripples. Wild. We'll get into a couple more specifics of the cast and the directing and some decisions there, but overall, I was absolutely enamored by Creed 3. It was the kind of movie where afterward I decided I need to look into boxing gym memberships. And then
Oh.
remember, this is something I do after I really enjoy a great movie and am fully brought into it, and decided to do a little more research before I make any big commitments. But that's how sucked into this movie I was. And
uh
absolutely, I was into it.
Nice. No, I look, I'm glad those guys didn't ruin the experience for you because I know how easily that could be done. You and I, we talked about instances that we've had where our movie experiences were ruined because of some stupid people, whether it's because they kept acting up or they wouldn't shut up or they wouldn't put their phone away or whatever the case is. So
Or they were taking the pictures of the screen with their flash on, and when Lady Gaga popped up in Star is
oh
Born
my
and chanted
god,
her name. That sounds so
don't
fun. What?
don't you dare get me started on that. Because to this day I have not rewatched A Star Is Born because of
Dude, it's
that
so
whole
good.
incident.
Dude,
I know.
you got to.
I should.
But
I should.
you'll just worry you'll get worked up again.
Yeah, I feel like the PTSD is gonna kick in, and I'm just gonna hear like some off tune, out of key girl next to me singing along with all her music in there, and yeah, and taking pictures every time she's on the damn screen. Yeah, not a fun situation, but no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you had a good time, and I'm glad you liked it. I'll get into my theater experience first before I get into my thoughts on the movie. I
So
also
I want
saw
to
it.
know if you saw it in IMAX specifically because I missed that. I had to.
No,
Okay,
I just
I'm
saw the
gonna go
regular.
back
Yeah,
because it was filmed for IMAX. I actually
yeah.
think I'm going to
Hmm.
rewatch it with that because I love a good intense boxing scene, and if it's made for that, that might
Yeah.
actually help even more.
Which is interesting because, and I think one of the reasons why I had to watch it at a nighttime showing, like I went to, it was like a 10:40 showing, was because all the earlier showings that they only had at the theater I go to was only RPX showings. Because again, like you said, it was filmed for IMAX, and RPX is kind of similar to like an IMAX situation, very enhanced picture and sound. And I feel like in other locations, the IMAX showings were the ones that took priority over regular digital showings. So in my theater for a Thursday, the only one standard screen showing they had was at 10:40, which was very interesting. I've never seen that before. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go see it. It doesn't really affect me that much. The theater was, I would say, like maybe for a Thursday night like that, was like 75-80% capacity, which is a lot. A lot of people. Yeah. I felt people were hyped for this movie for sure. I felt like there was like that air, in the atmosphere, that people were like, "Oh, I've been waiting for this movie. I've been like really hyped up about it and all that." Um, there was one person that kept going to the bathroom, and it was like the same person, which was kind of weird. Yeah, and it was like it was like on a cycle, like every 25 minutes, that person was going to the bathroom, and it was a little distracting because I would just see it on my peripheral, and it's the same person. It was just always like the slow walk down the stairs, the slow walk up the stairs. I'm like, and I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, was wearing like a white hoodie, so stood out. Like did not like really like blend with anything. So, but people they do what they have to do. I think throughout the movie, people were um excited, but I also feel like people were kind of confused at certain times. And then at the end of the
How
movie, I
come?
felt I'll explain because I feel like it may be along the same lines of my feelings.
Okay.
At the very end of the movie, I feel like people were kind of like, "Oh, that was nice, but that's it." Even though it at times it felt long, the movie for me. I don't know if they felt the same. I didn't like stand outside and like interviewed any of them as they were leaving. Although that would be kind of interesting if I did that. Uh, like a quick survey. It's like, so what did you think of the movie? Best moment, worst moment, blah blah blah. So I think in general, people thought it was a good movie. I didn't like. It. I did not like this movie, and yeah, and it's like I said, it's a good thing I watched the second movie going into this movie because it made me do a good comparison on the tone that the last movie had and the tone that this movie had. I went through most of this movie missing something. I felt like there was something obviously missing for me in this movie. I thought about it for, I think so. And I think the reason why is because if you looked at the last movie and just the Rocky movies in general, there was always like a lot of heart in those movies. There's always like some uplifting moment where you had this one person that maybe is going through some shit, and the other person is trying to like lift them up, encourage them. You're better than this. You can do it. Always believe in yourself. All that kind of stuff like that. I'm not saying that that wasn't here, but I felt like it wasn't at the same level like the other movies had. Tessa Thompson played a good part in that, just like she did in the previous two movies. She did what she did, and she was really good at it. She still continued to be really good at it. Yeah,
In a way, and his
totally.
coach in a
Yeah,
way, but they're both kind of like giving him a hard time and antagonistic, not just like
right.
not just what Rocky does is like, no, I can't coach you, I can't train you, you're a bum, whatever, and then come around and root for him. It was like there were more obstacles to him,
Right. Right.
and he was trying to overcome his own personal demons, which was the only when he's training against a mirror and looking in the
Right.
mirror, and then he looks across the ring and sees the younger version of his friend, etc. It was more of a
Right.
battle with himself, which is a lot of what Rocky has a whole speech about that in the first Creed movie, where
Right.
that's the toughest opponent in the ring is yourself, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There isn't that guy in the corner, literally, of their
Mhm.
life where okay, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm gonna put up the spoilers thing right now so that we could just really start talking about it. Which is fine. I think it's good to do that now. Um I Not only did I feel like something was missing, but I also felt like the quality of Michael B. Jordan's acting suffered a little bit. There was a difference. And if you watched the first two Creed movies and compared it to this, I do feel like there was a complete difference there. Now, it made me question, is Michael B. Jordan a really good actor? Because he is now leading this movie strictly by himself without the crutch of a Sylvester Stallone there, right? Now, we've seen him lead some movies on his own as well, but he was also being directed by somebody else. I personally think that because he was directing this movie himself, it may have, and again, this is just my opinion, for me, may have interfered a little bit with his acting on screen. And we've heard stories before about actor directors how they always say it's so difficult to do both sometimes. And if I had a choice, I wouldn't. Right? Like we've Ben Affleck talked about it. Yeah, so many people, and I've heard interviews all the time. This being his first time, maybe he won't admit it now, but I wonder if maybe if there was like a retrospective 5 years from now, if he would come out and say, you know what, if I were to do things differently, maybe I would do this differently or whatever the case is. All right, so I just want to get that out of the way, that could be a possibility for me. That
There, and
Yeah,
we're not going to fully face off, get an arena, and I'm not going to
no,
become
no,
your
no, yeah,
worst enemy. This might be the moment where we become each other's nemesis, but we'll talk it out first at least. It's possible because part of his character's trajectory in this movie is I can't talk about my problems. I'm stoic.
yeah,
And he also isn't overcoming poverty in the same way. He's more instead overcoming bad memories from the past, and it's much more internal. It's
mhm,
possible his choices, and he's more reserved and not doing as good of a job of acting overtly because the idea is he's not expressing himself, which is might make it look like it's a bad performance, even though it
sure,
is truer to the story at hand. That said, there's a version of this movie where another director gets a great performance out of him and says, "Yes, that's true, but also this," or maybe you could try that,
yeah,
something like that. And
yeah,
similar to if he's the only star of the movie, if he's also the main voice on the directions that this movie takes, maybe there's not another person there, a Sylvester Stallone or
mm,
a Ryan Coogler, to say, "Hey, try this," or maybe you could.
yeah,
So that's a possibility, is that if he's getting in his own way and or overwhelmed by the process, and so maybe doesn't have the bandwidth. I didn't view it as bad acting. I don't. This is a criticism I have for some actors who are highly charismatic and great
mhm,
personalities, and they're not necessarily great actors in the Philip Seymour Hoffman, Daniel Day Lewis, Meryl Streep type of way.
yeah,
I'm thinking of like a Leonardo DiCaprio, a Will Smith, a Sylvester
mhm,
Stallone. Some people are going to say they're great. That's fine. And if it works on you, that's great. These are folks I view as they're a personality on the screen, but to me, I still see them as celebrities at the forefront of the frame.
sure, yeah,
And they don't necessarily embody the emotions and the history and the full life of the character. I'm more so watching a celebrity do a good job of acting, sometimes great,
mhm,
but I don't think of Michael B. Jordan necessarily as a great capital A actor, inside the
mhm,
actor studio actor, whatever. I think of him more as a movie poster guy. And if he were to be the salesman at your company, he'd be the best salesman and he would sell the
oh,
most cars that year.
totally,
If
yeah,
he's doing commercials for someone, it's going to be the best commercial. Like
yeah,
he is big megawatt smile. I'm almost thinking like a Tom Cruise might be a comparison in a way. Like I could see this dude doing giant action movies for 30 years and being a star in that type of way, and sometimes doing a great acting performance, but more so relying on their charisma, their charm, their
Mhm.
personality, their looks, etc. So overall, I also didn't think he did a great job, but I don't think it detracted from my enjoyment of the movie, especially
Yeah.
the boxing scenes. Me more so, there was a couple decisions he made as a director. I'll get into. I'll hand it back over. I'll get to that in a minute. But it was
Yeah.
me a couple decisions he made as a director that I didn't necessarily love or took me out of the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard other people kind of refer to him as a face actor. He's just like a face, right? So it very much in alignment of what you just said. And I think that is true to a certain extent. I do feel like, again, under the tutelage of another director, we will get a chance to see like the best of him come out. You know, again, you go back to Fruitville Station. Oh my God, brilliant performance there. Like, you know, you go back to his portrayal of Killmonger in Black Panther.
Now we're
You
talking three Ryan Cooglers. I didn't think about that before. That's kind of interesting. Maybe
exactly,
they should
and
work together more often. Maybe you should be
that's
like, I don't do movies unless Ryan Coogler. I did love Chronicle. Chronicle is one of my
oh,
all-time
Chronicle is
low-key
great too.
faves.
Yeah,
Not enough
absolutely.
people love
Yeah,
that movie, dude. Not enough people have seen it. The amount of times I'm like, oh, you like
yeah,
sci-fi and comic book
yeah,
movies and whatever.
yeah.
Amazing movie. But you know what he does in that movie? He's a face. Like he's the star
Totally.
quarterback with a big smile and he's just playing
Yeah,
it cool the whole time, Mr. Charming. And then
yeah.
a few times he has to get upset or worked up or like, whoa, 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 what's going on here?
Right.
But it's not necessarily like Dane DeHaan in that movie is doing full blown amazing
Oh
acting.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And he, like again, he has his role and his places in what he does and all that. But yeah, that being said, as far as like other parts of the movie that kind of bothered me, one major thing that really bothered me is the pacing of the movie. A lot of things happen too quickly and too abruptly. I felt like there was never a good sense of time. You know, like things happen way too quick, and it kind of took me out of the. Now I know it's a movie, and there's a certain period where you have to kind of suspend your disbelief and all that stuff like that. Um, but it got to a certain point where I just couldn't do that anymore because I'm like, okay, you have Jonathan Majors who keeps asking for a shot, right? He's like, I want a shot at the championship and all that stuff like that. It's like, okay, it's gonna take time. You have his current champ. Okay, we should mention this. So in the movie, Michael B. Jordan is retired from fighting. He is now what his dad became at one point, kind of like a promoter, a business guy, right? So he's kind of, it's like mirroring what his dad's career turned out to be. Um, so he has a champion already in his gym who needs a fight. He was supposed to fight Victor Drago, who comes back in this movie, which I thought was very a questionable thing to do, because now they're buds and now they're talking because money is involved and now it's a business where, yeah,
Jay-Z
which is
squashes beefs when it's good for this bottom line. Who
look,
among us wouldn't be like, oh, 50 mil? Yeah, I'd like to be your friend again.
look, Rocky would never go into business with Ivan Drago. I'll just say that. He would never do that. He'll just be like, "Hey, what are you doing here in Philly? Doing all this stuff." And you know, he'd be like, "I don't know. Maybe you should go." Again, watching the second movie helped me realize a lot of these things.
I mean,
So I,
Rocky, for the record, became close friends with some of his other rivals, namely Apollo Creed, but whatever.
well,
We'll get to that
Creed,
another time. Fine. Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. But this was like nemesis, right? And
I actually haven't seen
whatever.
two since theaters. I wanted to rewatch it, ran out of time. I
I,
literally
I
have
would.
the Creed movies up now,
You
and I'm going
should
to finish
watch it.
them after this. But did
Yeah.
they end the Drago movie as they're still enemies, or was it similar to some of the other Rocky movies where they end with mutual respect?
No, there wasn't any mutual respect.
It
Basically,
was just pure hatred
it
even
just
afterward. Okay.
just ended, and they went their separate ways because
Okay.
because the second movie ended with Drago throwing the towel. So the fight didn't even end in any one like clear cut loser or winner, even though you know Victor was getting the crap beat out of him for sure. So it looked like he was gonna die, but he was not giving up either. So Ivan, being the dad, like, you don't need to prove yourself anymore, son. It became more of like a father son story, right? And kind of in the opposite, the Stallone relationship with Creed, you know, because that's his uncle, right? And that's his like fatherly figure now that he has to look up to, which I think also was missing in this movie. Creed didn't have that fatherly figure to look up to. So he had to deal with a lot of stuff on his own, and it led to a lot of different choices and whatever the case is. But yeah, so the pacing was just a little weird because you know Jonathan Majors' character gets in a title shot with this new guy. He becomes champion all of a sudden in a short period of time. Now he has a mansion somewhere in LA, and like it's just everything was so rushed. I felt, then he of course challenges Creed and all this kind of stuff like that, and Creed wants to prove himself to shut him up, so he has to go back into fighting and blah blah blah, this and that. And then like at the end, the ending even ended so abruptly where there was like momentum swinging and all that stuff like that, and it just felt like all of a sudden, oh, Creed wins, right? Creed knocked out Jonathan Majors and all that stuff like that. But
more of a like
it was very artistic,
and it was like multiple rounds happened and timing was a factor of where they're not, which is part of a difficulty with any sports movie, is do we go 12 minutes later? Is it like a recap you see on ESPN where they only show the highlights? Right. It's really difficult to do that in sports movies. And because every sports match, more or less, is the length or longer than a movie, it can be really difficult to do unless you have a first round knockout, a third round knockout, whatever.
Sure.
So that, because they went the distance, that's part of it. Right.
Yeah, which I didn't even realize until they announced it at the end. When they said like, oh, knocked out in the 12th and final round, I was like, that was 12 rounds? I was like, I did one of those things where I was just like, wow, we really went through the whole thing. It just didn't feel like timing was, I'm telling you, I think it's Jonathan Majors. His character of Kang came in and messed up the time. And it just wasn't existent,
Now that you mentioned it, the fact that, when they went to that alternate dimension, was that part of the same realm? Was it a quantum realm? Was it even our universe? It's hard to know these things. But when you do give a boxing movie, but one of the characters has the ability to time travel, to become very tall, very big, it's not fair. And that makes sense then. Because at that point, then maybe he was even actually messing with the reality of the time in your theater. That's another possibility too.
Yeah.
Maybe because I had a different experience than what you just said. I knew what round we were in as we were getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
But that was my theater, and my movie started 5 minutes after yours did. And maybe during that time, Kang from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, played by Jonathan Majors,
he totally messed it up.
That's possible. Okay,
totally
we got to get deeper on that theory. Maybe we should actually do a whole nother side, like a mini series on that.
Yeah, no, it totally messed it up, and plus the whole thing about MODOK was weird, and I was like, what is he doing here? And no, I'm just playing. But the last things I will say is, there were definitely a lot of creative choices that were made that I really question a lot. And the one thing that bothered me most is that I do feel like they really, really, really tried their best to phase out Rocky in this movie. Yes, he is mentioned briefly during one conversation, but all other mentions of him. No, yeah, it was like it was
like the big guy
a fight.
Or the champ.
Yeah, it was like a fight like that, like But if you looked at the trailer, he mentions him by name multiple times. So I felt like they really went out of their way to kind of phase out Rocky from this, and I don't blame on Michael B. Jordan one bit. I did some digging and all that stuff like that. And I think it's because Sylvester Stallone has really major beef with one of the producers of the movie, someone that he's worked with for a very long time. And that's Irwin Winkler. I think Irwin Winkler made it a mandate to phase Rocky out of this movie because of the bad blood they have between each other, which is unfortunate because, again, we're talking spoilers here. So Felicia Rashad, Marianne Creed, dies in this movie. She suffers from a heart attack. We already get hinted that she already had an attack before, and there was a concern about her living on her own. And unfortunately, she does have a second one that pretty much, ends her life. Very touching moment, by the way, with him and her by her bedside, and how she was seeing Apollo instead of Adonis and all that. Like, very, very touching moment. But where was, Rocky would have been at that funeral. He wasn't there. And the fact that he wasn't there, it just felt wrong, and I felt like Rocky would have 100% been there. We don't even know where Rocky is right now. At the end of Creed 2, he finally gathers up the courage to call his son so that he could see his grandson. And we just see him going to their house and meeting his grandson for the first time. We don't know where Rocky is since, so what happened to him? Like, he just kind of like disappeared. And the one thing I find really fascinating, and I'll be curious to hear what you think about it when you watch the second movie again. Michael Adonis gets angry at Rocky and basically calls Rocky out. It's like, you doubt me, but what have you been doing with your life? You haven't been making all the right decisions. You've been living here on your own. You have nobody around you and all that stuff like that. You have no friends. You really think about it, Adonis in this movie has no friends either. He's kind of alone, so he kind of fell into that same trap that Rocky was in. Now, the difference is that he has, Bianca, and he has his daughter. But other than that, he has a coach that he doesn't really hang out with. Like, they're not friends. Not like how Rocky was with Mickey and all that stuff like that, or Paulie, right? Adonis is alone. And I found
anybody, and he's got those
right.
demons inside. He's got his past, and he had, and also part of the movie is his best friend was sent away to prison for 18 years, and he doesn't want to talk about it. He was kind of separated from his family by the law, by the justice system, by his mother with the letters, etc. Which, sorry, I'm going to interject real quick. I don't want you to lose the train of thought where you were going, but the photograph that was in the letters that they like zoom in on with Jonathan Major's character holding the other person's hand.
Like they're doing one of these things. Yeah.
Why was that so special that they zoomed in on it?
So, one, that was a picture that he took in prison of, I guess that's his new crew and all that stuff like that. The guy that he's in handshake, that he's like giving the handshake to, or like, kind of crossing arms with, that's the guy that injured Victor Drago at the club.
Oh, thank you. The conspiracy, which maybe is real, is that guy injures Drago.
Yeah, they did a whole Tanya Harding thing where like his boy is the one who hurt Victor at the club.
So a spot would open up and he'd be given
100%. Yep.
Thank you. I did not remember what that dude looked like. They should have sold that a little more, unless I missed something. But
you had to pay attention. Yeah, you had to pay attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, like when you're zooming in on the photograph, you think it's because like that character was barely even in that scene.
Yeah.
Like he just looked like a couple other dudes that were in that room already. And I was like, oh, okay, one of the guys in the crew that I couldn't tell what the fight was about, which is intentional because they don't want you to know it was Jonathan Major's character till later. But you think you would be talking to somebody going, guess what I learned today?
Right.
You think you might tell Stephen A. Smith or somebody. Like, damn.
Yeah. No, I mean,
okay. Thank you for explaining that. That was the thing bothering me on the how much time they spent on what.
Yeah. And again, it could be for this particular case for you, that could have also been poor pacing or poor editing, and all that,
Or Kang also again with my
with a
different problem.
Time, damn Kang, he's all over the place. That guy, he's gonna be a major trouble for us in the next couple of years. But but yeah, I spoke a lot about kind of my grievances and all that stuff like that. I will say this though, the things that I love about the movie, of course, the performances from everyone. Jonathan Majors was great, was fantastic in this movie. However, I do feel like he could have been given more. Tessa Thompson, brilliant as always. Felicia Rashad was great. Mila Davis Kent, Amara Creed, the daughter. Oh,
she's a deaf actress.
Yeah, which is great.
Absolutely crushed this role.
Oh my god!
And the interviews I've seen with her are heartwarming.
Oh,
Absolutely.
she was really one of my favorites in this movie, and I love the father daughter moments where she really loves fighting because she sees it from her dad, and she wants to train. I won't be surprised in 5 years from now the story continues with her because I feel like that's kind
That's
of them
my
setting it up.
question, because that's what folks are saying. But are you gonna do like kid boxing? Like
No, when she gets older, like maybe not five. Well, they could do
you
a
hire an
time
older
jump.
actress and Creed puts
Yeah,
in some goatee gray in his goatee.
probably.
She's now
Yeah,
going for a college in the Olympics. Okay, I'm
sure.
down with
Yeah,
that. Yeah. You
yeah,
just sold the
yeah.
ticket. Yeah, okay. That
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
awesome. Awesome. Okay.
yeah. Oh, that would be cool too if they actually see her like in a either collegiate or an Olympic type of boxing situation, and not so much of
To
a
where it's not just
professional.
about the money and the title
Right,
and the because
right,
that's something that's a problem with, like, it's similar with music careers and they're like, oh, I was a nobody and they doubted me and now I'm a champion. That's awesome. When
right.
you're a champion, you're like, oh, I have too much money and I'm lonely
Yeah,
and I wasn't prepared for the stress of success. We're like,
yeah.
you don't feel bad. You're not an underdog anymore, dude. Fuck
No,
off.
for sure.
That'll be it.
Yeah.
That okay. I like this. Let's
I,
work
I
on
feel
that
like I
script
feel like
tonight.
we
I
should.
think we just
Yeah, we should lay it out,
I
outline it.
bet they haven't even thought of it yet. I bet they haven't even. She likes. Did you notice she likes boxing?
Yeah, she was into it. She wants to train.
Maybe they should
I
do
think
something with that.
I think that would be good.
Michael B.
Um.
Jordan was making comparisons to Muhammad Ali's daughter,
Okay.
and also talking about hanging out with Jamie Foxx and Kobe Bryant. And Kobe's daughter was going to be a
Gotcha.
basketball player. Was and
Okay.
seeing that comparison in fathers and daughters, whereas a lot of Rocky and Creed before father
Mhm.
or father figure and son. And so I like
Yeah.
that aspect. I like the the ASL aspect where it's not
Totally.
many blockbuster movies where they've got subtitles over ASL and these actors
Yeah.
learning sign language, and that was beautiful to see. It
Yeah.
to me, it's a quick way, and I've seen it done in a few other shows. It's a really good way. Not only do those stories deserve to be told, first off, it's a good way to show I love you and I care enough about you to learn a whole new
Yes.
language because I want to
Yeah.
communicate with you, and and watching them just communicate naturally. Can you make another sandwich? I'm hungry. It's your bedtime. Whatever, but
Yep.
doing it in another language, it just shows a special level of connection. I honestly think more movies should do that. I just imagine the difficulty level might be higher for the actors, but
Sure.
Tessa Thompson, Michael B. Jordan, and that actress, and the grandmother. Watching the grandmother sign with the granddaughter was just like
Oh,
I was getting choked up for real.
yeah.
Um,
And that's why I definitely want to give a lot of kudos to Felicia Rashad because I do feel like she was the heart in this movie
yeah,
whenever she was on screen, and the daughter too. I feel like the daughter really helped level out Adonis's
that's a
character
good point.
because
Yeah.
and you needed that in here because could you imagine if they didn't put any focus on any of that stuff? The feeling of this movie would be all over the place, I think.
Well, that's
Um,
part of why Sly Stallone didn't was disagreeing with the creative direction of the movies. He's talking about the darkness that it dealt with and the internal,
mhm,
the demons that he's fighting through, etc. And Sly Stallone doesn't enjoy that content.
yeah,
Um, that and because of this movie, you're having to watch them. We're talking about it earlier. Go to the introspection and the depths and like these very traumatic memories and things that he doesn't talk about for a reason because of his
yeah,
childhood in I think the foster system with Leon the person and then this
right,
character was defending him but then he and who among us doesn't have something from our childhood where we go oh yeah I let that person fall off or I didn't follow up with them I lost touch with them when I moved out etc and that kind of thing but on this case the stakes were so much higher it was definitely a lonelier and darker movie.
hmm
You're right. The grandmother, the daughter, and the wife all being there, and this movie taking the direction of a fathers and daughters narrative. I think that's where the heart of the movie is in a lot of
for sure.
ways. That's
No,
interesting. Okay,
definitely.
that might be part of the difference there.
Yeah, and again, I don't mind at all the fact that they wanted to really make this a Creed movie and kind of get out of the shadow of Rocky. Eventually, you kind of have to, right? But at the same time, it's the same world, it's the same universe, right? You can't ignore the fact that Rocky was a major part of their lives in general, and just not having him there for me personally. Again, I'm a huge Rocky fan, like you are. Um, that was a missed opportunity, I think, and it's unfortunate that you just couldn't have that. even if it were for like a brief moment, you know.
But what you telling me what you told me, the reason why I didn't want spoilers at all is because I knew that there was I'd heard something about Sly Stallone, creative differences, whatever. And I was like, there's a chance, especially with press cycles and the way that those can either be used or
Mhm.
manipulated, et cetera. I didn't read anything that said he's 100% not in it. We've seen it. And he's not there. I was
Yeah.
hoping there's a chance he's popping in at the end or three quarters through. He's like, oh, you need a trainer. Okay, I'll do one last round or whatever. You can't keep recycling the same plot so many times, but we're also talking about the Rocky franchise. So yes, you
Yeah.
absolutely can. And the
Yeah.
movie, in my opinion, you're right, is better if he is the trainer at the end of the day. He has
Yeah.
beef with the gym owner, and that guy is then coaching. And you want this other guy to break off from that, etc. Like those dynamics could have still played out similarly
Yeah.
without having Sly totally out of it. If you're
Yeah.
that producer and it's about ego or anything like that, screw off. Just say this movie is more successful and I make more money if Sly's in there. If Sylvester Stallone chose not to do it because of creative differences, etc., sure. I mean, you got to respect that at the end of the day. It's tough though. I think you hope that those things work out and you at least get some version of a cameo, a
Yeah.
phone call, a something.
Well,
Yeah,
well, you
even
know,
showing him call the mom and say, "Sorry, I couldn't make it to the funeral, but pass this message along," or something
right.
like that. You know,
Michael,
or sorry, not calling
Michael.
the mom who died, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. Michael B. Jordan actually he tried to wait till the last minute to squeeze in a cameo from Sylvester.
Mm, wow.
But it just wasn't happening. Again, don't
Mm,
know if it's from Sylvester's side or from because of Erwin Winkler. I do think it's because of Erwin. I think that the beef is just so hard that he just doesn't want to have anything to do with any of that stuff. But that's why I don't blame Michael B. Jordan on any of that stuff. I just feel like he has to listen to what the producer says, but and still get his movie out there. Um, I have thoughts about some other things, but I want to hear your thoughts on because you mentioned you said like there were some director like kind of more directorial things that kind of bothered you a little bit or you have questions on. So I want to hear your thoughts about that.
it's not so much like that there's exact moments. I think the boxing scene in particular, when they did the anime style boxing scene
Yeah.
where suddenly the world around them isn't in reality.
Hmm.
As someone who enjoys boxing, I enjoy boxing matches that are uber real and very intense. And even
Yeah.
when it comes to actual boxing matches, sorry if I lose you non-sports fans, but like the Mayweather where he's dancing around the ring, you have to respect
Hmm.
it. He found a cheat code essentially. But my favorite is the Tyson Fury when he's just foot
Mm.
and his here planted and just trading punches with the dude. There's nothing like that sensation in real life. It's so intense. So when they made it unreal, I actually enjoy it as a creative decision. As someone who just wants to watch two dudes punching each other, like
Yeah.
and the art of that and the timing, and yeah, I'm not just saying pure bloodshed. I don't want the Rambo version of Adonis 4.
Or the raid.
But yeah, okay, actually, that sounds great. Hold on. um, John Wick meets Creed in Creed 4
Oh my
and
god,
John
that'd be
Wick 4.
nuts.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. But no, that I thought was an interesting choice. Michael B. Jordan's an anime fan. I
Oh yeah.
understand the
Hmm.
decision there. Creatively, I didn't love it boxing wise. Otherwise, as far as the timing of it, it just some scenes felt stilted, and I felt the director's hand in the editing a little more than I should. If it was smoother, some of the transitions from one to another, the timing of it, and I'm not trying to say that this ruined the movie. I think for you it was a bigger problem. I felt like I understood what was happening in real time. I loved the Jonathan Majors plot line and the scene when they're at the beach and he's making fun of him in front of everybody and goes full bad guy. As someone who just enjoys good acting performances and the idea of like a heel or the way that boxers will antagonize each other on a stage, but seeing it be real to me
Hmm.
adds more dramatic stakes. I felt the intensity and the anger and the resentment of those characters as it's happening. I understand why Sly Stallone wanted to go dark like that. I love that it did. I felt like that made it. The even the commentators throughout the boxing match are talking about the boxing, but they're definitely talking about the intensity of that moment and the emotional fatigue that the boxers would be feeling in those moments. So overall, I thought it was successful on telling me a story, telling me the plot points, knowing where we are in time. But it was more so maybe like the editing and just the direction of the movie overall. It wasn't as smooth and I'm sucked into every single moment the way that I could be. It was more like detached set pieces. Okay, now we're going to a training montage. Okay, now we're going back to the house. Now this is the fight scene. And it just felt a little bit clunky on the editing and directing. That said, the fact that I can't say why makes me think it doesn't even necessarily have to be Michael B. Jordan's fault as a director. It's possible there's other things happening or in the editing room. Maybe the studio at some point had too heavy of a hand in it. It felt like that kind of problem, though, almost like when you see a movie where a director takes over from another one and
Yeah.
things don't quite fit as seamlessly, even though that's not the case here.
Mhm.
You do hear about those studios sometimes where the studio will chop a movie up a little bit, shorten the runtime, etc. So it might be a scenario like that. At the end of the day, I felt like it was successful, and I know that I was into it despite all the distractions happening around me. Um, so yeah, I don't think I have. It's not necessarily beef with Michael B. Jordan's directing, though. I think it
Mhm.
was just overall, it was not as successful. Like I gave it a 4 out of 5, and for a movie I really enjoyed, that's a pretty low score. But it was more so I just anytime we're watching an intense boxing scene, and this movie had multiple of them, that to me is always enjoyable. So I think that's kind of why it gets more credit. If it was something I didn't enjoy, like I don't know, if this was race car driving, I may have given it like a 3, 3.5. So there's that.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, yeah, so you actually touched a point on two things that I actually wanted to elaborate on too. So the fight scenes and the anime influence. You really see that in the last fight, at the final fight at the end of the movie. You know, when they go into like this other astral plane, very anime related, where there's no audience, there's no crowd, it's just them two in the ring. You have clouds all over the place, and you have like crazy like cages popping up and all that. You totally, if you're an anime fan, you totally see the influence coming out here. But we also get to see that in other fights, in different little ways too. The close up of the eyes, that's a very anime influence kind of thing. You know, kind of just like, you know, as
Hmm.
he's about to do something. The thing you mentioned earlier, the punching of the stomach, and you see the sweat fly in his back and all that. That's a very anime
Okay.
influence type of
Yeah,
punch. You
I
know,
see that now.
yeah. If it
Interesting.
was in an anime, you would actually see like a bulge, which would kind of mimic
Right.
like the fist coming out. But you know, obviously that's not realistic.
Like little lightning marks or movement or like wind or something
Right.
like that, whatever that's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
Showing
Yeah.
motion, like boom, the impact went through their back, but now
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
sweat because we're in human life. Okay.
Yeah, and even when they cut to the front, where you see Michael B. Jordan kind of like grimacing, leaning forward as he's about to hit the floor, and
Hmm.
Jonathan just like holding that punch to his stomach.
Oh, you're right.
That's yeah, that's
Interesting.
a very anime influence shot right there too. I'm sure
Another
you
one
could
is
pull
the
up.
running
Yeah,
where they're going from one side to the other and they run towards each other. There's a
yeah,
couple moments where you're like, you normally
yeah,
don't see that in boxing. You
yeah,
do sometimes, sure.
yeah,
But a couple characters in this movie had that going on where they
yeah,
just go full speed essentially. And the
yeah,
way Jonathan Majors' character moved was interesting. So
yeah.
I'm glad because I personally don't like anime. Don't tell anybody.
That's
Don't tell
okay.
Michael B.
Hey.
Jordan for sure. He'll be a Christian about me. And he could. But I have seen enough anime to know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. I now kind of want to rewatch that. I could almost see Michael B. Jordan doing like a short anime clip of that fighting
sure.
scene or something like that. That could be cool.
Yeah.
But no, when I rewatch, I'll keep an eye on that. That's a great point, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see him do like a commentary track, or you know, I think it's either GQ or Vanity Fair who does like scene of a movie where he's standing there and he's like highlighting, okay, this is how I did this and all that stuff like that. It'll be great to see him do that and kind of call out his influences. Like, well, I saw this
Yep.
because of Dragon Ball or because of Naruto or something like that. You know, it'll be kind of cool to hear that and hear him point that out. The Jonathan Majors, like the way he would like lounge at people in the ring was very animalistic. You know, it was just
Lunging
very,
at
very
them,
interesting.
like the way he would
Like,
kind of
like,
like,
like the way he
yeah,
would just like kind of
okay,
charge at them. Like it's very
yeah,
animalistic. Very. It was like you
that was
don't see that
wild.
in boxing. Yeah. And
This
he's always
move
doing
too.
like
What the
this. Yeah,
Never. I'm
like
sure
that.
there's somebody who did that. They got it from. I'm not enough of an aficionado to look, but I've never seen someone do that in a ring. And I was like,
No.
is that brilliant or is that the dumbest thing I've ever seen? It was just like some prison moves kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
Like you
totally.
just
Yeah,
playing a little dirty and you're setting your own system and you're like, oh, I came up with my own thing. While you guys were
yeah.
watching boxing, we had an anything goes policy, so I made a few new moves. That was
Right.
wild. And the way he moved around a ring was fascinating.
Oh yeah.
But the way he hit arms in those angles, that was messed up.
Yeah, I was
That
gonna
one
say
got
like,
me, and it's hard. I've been so desensitized to fight scenes. You
yeah,
got to have some real, like John Wick breaking someone's knee with a kick, kind of like Atomic Blonde. Like you got to do more to get me to like feel it.
yeah.
I felt those arm punches. That was
Oh my
brutal when
god.
he's hitting you at the exact weakest part of your arm, which is
Mm-hmm.
again maybe something he learned while he was locked away.
Yeah, and you could also say like that could be anime inspired too, kind of like having a person hone in on this particular part of the body, and like that's the weak
Right.
point. That's what I'm going to aim for, And
Where it's almost
we,
like an unrealistic reaction or the most dramatic reaction a body can have. Where in anime, you'll punch someone, they'll go flying 100 feet in the air.
right,
This is kind of like
right,
the in reality physics version of that, where like I'm going
right,
to do the most damage towards like I'm a superhero and I'm not.
yeah.
Oof.
Like a
Yeah.
great example of that is the first fight in the movie where it's like I guess it's Adonis's retirement fight, right? And he's kind of like on the ropes, but you see him not punching much but he's eyeing the guy's body, right? He's
Yeah.
watching the movement and all that. And then in the final
That was
moment,
so cool.
the way the
Gosh.
camera like sticks on him as he like dodges out of the way and then kind of just like
Hmm.
goes for that point.
Interesting.
Dude, that was so on point, like an anime right there. And it kind of reminded me of Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes,
Hmm.
when he plays out the scenario in his head and then
Yeah.
he carries it out. That
Equalizer
was,
is another movie that does that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, the future. Now I'm thinking about it. The future because that made it so much better. The future of boxing on TV because like they'll do replay and they'll whatever. I need to have it to where they have so many cameras in so many places and can like
Right.
slow mo it. Maybe not in real time, but on those replays, I need that level of action moving forward. There was
Yeah.
something innovative about which we've seen this kind of like this slow mo punches in. Of like Jake Gyllenhaal in Southpaw.
Right.
Where the more modern boxing movies are way more intense than anything Rocky had ever done back
Yeah.
in the day. But this one, you're right that it takes it to another level where it really increases it hyperbolizes the action happening on the screen to its just most intense possible version of itself.
No, definitely
Okay.
for sure. And that's why I give kudos to Michael B. Jordan because that's all him. That's all his directing and all that. And I thought especially nowadays, we've seen so many Rocky movies now. So we've seen all your different fight angles, your fight matches, and all that stuff like that. It's nice to have him put a new spin on it, which I really appreciated. So if you were to ask me there must be some things you liked about the movie. That stuff I really appreciated and I really enjoyed because he tried something different. And the last thing I will say, because you mentioned the whole Jonathan Majors storyline, I liked it too, but I felt it could definitely have been better. And I think it could have felt more of an impact if they took the time in showing his rise. Like I felt they sped things up way too fast.
He does
You
a few
know?
fights somewhere.
Yeah.
He just has to get one person's respect. The
Right.
the boxing coach, Apollo's coach, always being anti. If it's some way been like, oh damn, that boy can fight. Maybe we should get some money off. Something like that, where
Right.
he earns
Yeah.
his place a little bit more. Just a montage of that. You're onto
Yeah.
something there for sure.
Yeah.
That would have been better. And then also the one where he turns heel so quickly.
Oh my
I
God,
think
it's
you're
so
right.
fast. Yeah.
Now, the movie is proposing that he was always heel or ready to turn heel. And so
Sure.
he set this whole thing up. But the fact that Michael B. Jordan gave him a shot so early, most friends would be like, hey, thank you so much. I will not hurt this relationship we are now forming.
Right.
You gave me a shot. So now, yes, it's him versus the world and screw everybody. And you left me and you ignored me while I was in prison. I've been planning this. Sure, I do understand that. But that was essentially only told through a montage of Michael B. Jordan looking at letters in a photograph.
Right.
And
Right.
then
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, you got the letters, you got me.
Right.
There's a few different points of dialogue they could have sold better, And there's
Hmm.
the I wish that there had been more happening where they turn against each other rather than a small miscommunication on, oh, I never saw your letters.
Yeah.
And part of it is they're not talking about their feelings. And that's, I think, really at the end of the day. This is a movie. We're definitely talking about a movie of how Black men
Hmm.
are treated in the criminal justice system. That is at
Yeah.
least in the subtext of the movie, and a couple points addressed without getting overtly political. It was lovely seeing the disability representation of this film. But a big theme throughout this movie is the mental health. You got to talk to somebody about your past and your problems. You got to
Yeah.
talk to somebody. And that is something that you probably would not have seen very much of in the old Rocky movies
That's
that we're
true.
definitely getting in 2023. I'm hoping
Yeah.
that there's a lot of men whose suicide rates are higher who are going to go see this movie and be like, maybe I should talk to someone about what happened to me in the foster home. Maybe that would be good. Maybe I need
Yeah.
to get that off my chest instead of burning my career and family to the ground. So,
No,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, if you go back to some of the old Rocky movies, there's some stuff that happened in there that are very questionable now. Like the whole thing with Rocky and Adrian, where he wouldn't let her leave the house. It was like,
Oh, when I rewatched Rocky, I was like,
yeah, yeah.
that's what this movie is.
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
maybe you should let her go. Maybe
You
you
know?
shouldn't stand in front of the door and try to seduce her
Right,
right now,
exactly.
sir.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea.
No. But again, that was what, 77, 78. So
I'm sorry, are you trying to tell me that in the year
no,
1977?
no,
No, I just
I'm
want to
not
make sure I
saying it's
understand you. You're saying
okay.
it's okay to hold people hostage. I just want to make sure that
That is
was
not what
you're
I'm
saying
saying.
that back then society was like, yeah, that's cool. Who
Yeah,
cares?
that's
You
why,
can just lock people in your home,
hey,
treat them like your
that's
pet turtles, which is my favorite part of the old Rocky movie. A lot
did,
of turtle talk.
oh, a lot of turtle talk. Oh my god, so much damn turtle talk.
This movie
But
is
that's
much
also,
weirder than I remembered.
oh yeah. Well, that's why like every Christmas, Baby It's Cold Outside. That's my favorite song of all time. Yeah. So basically, you ain't leaving. So stay here and we'll Netflix and chill. But I want to propose something to you real quick. If you gave me a chance to rewrite this movie, I
Mhm.
wanted I want to tell you what I would have done. That would have probably made this movie more impactful. Not saying that it's not now for you. Um, Again, put more focus on the rise of Jonathan Majors' character. And I know you said like, well, you don't want to rehash stuff that's been done in previous Rocky movies, but it is a Rocky centric movie, right? So that stuff does tend to happen. What if we ended the movie with Creed losing and Adonis then becomes, the above all and all that stuff like that at the end of the movie. So
The
that
above
that
all? What
so
are you saying?
so Jonathan Majors' character wins the championship because he beats Felix, right? So he gets all the belts and all that stuff like that.
Right.
Then, you know, Creed feels like he has to challenge him to kind of shut him up and, get all that stuff back, right? But then you have this whole buildup going into that instead of it happening so damn fast, right? End the movie with him losing, just like the
With Creed
original
losing at
Rocky.
the end on the final
Yeah,
fight. Okay.
yeah, just like the original Rocky. Rocky loses in the original movie, and then it kind of humbles him in a way, so that in the next movie, that's when they could finally have that, I spent X amount of years dealing with the fallout here, dealing with all this stuff like that. This guy, he's now, terrorizing or whatever the case is, doing his thing. Now I have to really get my name back out there. Kind of just again, if we're seeing him kind of mimic the life of his dad, this is the same thing that kind of happened with his dad, but on the opposite end of things, right? You want to pay homage to Rocky. This is a great way to pay homage to Rocky without having Rocky being there. You know, that's my
So you
proposal on how
can't
would yeah.
no no matter what, just in storytelling, you can't have Jonathan Majors be the bad guy and win at the end of the movie. If you want to leave people angry and with a bad feeling in their mouths and this movie is unjust and you can be a horrible person and bad things happen. Like you have versions of that story where the good guy wins or loses, but he has a moral victory. Like at the end of Rocky, the story is he's in love with Adrian and she's
Right.
his girl and they say, "What are you looking forward to doing next?" or whatever, and he's just looking for Adrian. He's like, "That's all I care about right now."
Mm-hmm.
He has a moral victory because he held it down, held his own against Apollo Creed. You can't have one where the stakes are, I'm coming for everything. I am an absolute, I just like the heel, like in wrestling, like I'm just the bad guy, and then they win and expect people to come back and see the next movie to see Creed now come from behind to beat the ultimate nemesis. Like, I was thinking about that during the movie, and it's part of the problem with sports movies. And sometimes they subvert your expectations, and the good team loses and the bad team wins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually a reason why that's happening. And about halfway through the movie, I said, well, the stakes they've set up, there is 0% chance that Jonathan Majors' character can possibly win at the end of this movie without people just leaving the theater, just like spitting on the ground. You've set him up as not just like chaos, like evil and chaotic. And I'm trying to think of like the actual the stakes of the plot somehow, and I'm trying to articulate like why it is that in the story itself it couldn't happen. But for Creed, it's like, I guess maybe that's part of it. When Creed is knocked down on the beach and
Mm-hmm.
laughed at in front of everyone, given a black eye, against the rules, away from the ring, you can't then have that same guy lose again. He is now the one getting revenge and justice, and that's the conclusion to the movie. In the movie where that doesn't happen, maybe there's a version where we're talking about that. But the one where he gets demoralized, you can't then have that happen again at the end of the movie. You could have a different version where Jonathan Majors' character has been shunned by Creed, and Creed loses himself and goes the dark side, and Jonathan Majors is the one who's like, "Hey, I'm a good friend, and you screwed me over." And Creed's like, "Yeah, sorry, I can't take your calls right now. I'm making millions of dollars. I don't do box, whatever." Some version of that, which we've seen sometimes in these franchises, someone ignoring their duties or responsibilities. Then sure, you could have Jonathan Majors' character be a come from behind, set like tell the moral story. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget your friends, family, etc. Remember who you are, something like that. But I think it was after the beach scene I knew no matter what, Creed will not lose at the end of this movie.
And I understand that, but I think that's why it plays into the two things that we kind of criticize a little bit. One, the heel turn was too fast. Like if we elongated that, and tried to make it
Sure.
make the story like, oh, they're really friends, but the reveal isn't made until like the very end or something like that. Or yeah, kind of turned Adonis into an asshole, where he's just his pride takes over. And again, this is the absence of a mentor. He has no Rocky on his side right now.
Right.
So he lets his pride take over, and then everything bad comes out and all this stuff. So at the end of the movie, maybe you're not rooting so much for Adonis anymore. Where now you're kind of like, well, I kind of like Jonathan Majors' character at this
Yeah,
moment.
that's a cool like kind of Killmonger in Black Panther,
Right.
where some of the
Yeah.
audience is like, this guy actually makes some good points.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And then find a way to flip that script in the next movie. Because
And then in Creed 4, Sylvester Stallone would come back and say, "Hey kid, you lost yourself. I'm here to remind you." Something like that.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that, I think. And again, the only reason why I wanted to propose that too is because Jonathan Majors is too good of an actor to not have him in this franchise. The fact that they kind of like ended his run here, I don't think he'll be back. There's no point for him to be back. Even though at the end of the movie he's like, yo, we good. You know where to find me if you need anything. That's fine. That's all fine and good. But is there a point for him to come back after that, really?
For sure. It happens in sports movies sometimes where, I'm trying to think, it would be the story where Creed's daughter is fighting to get a scholarship to go, which obviously she doesn't need a scholarship, her dad's rich, whatever. Creed blows all his money on a drug addiction, loses Tessa Thompson. She needs a scholarship. She's fighting for her life. And then Jonathan Majors' character is like, you know what I have to do? I have to prevent that. He then
Right.
is enrolling, does, whatever he needs to do, paperwork, goes to the college, and then fights Creed's daughter to try to prevent her. Something like that.
You might be
He's
on
just
something.
ultimate bad
Yeah.
guy. No, seriously, like
Yeah.
you can do a spinoff. I've also thought they don't really do prequels in this franchise, to my knowledge. I think it's
They don't.
always time
Yeah.
progressing, which
Yeah.
with boxing, especially with the amount of years that has happened since the franchise started, you don't really want to de-age Rocky too much. It might be crappy in the fighting scenes, especially
Right.
when you're talking shirtless acting, etc. Maybe the technology will get there, but
Right.
um, I would love to see at least a somewhat of a prequel. If you showed me a Jonathan Majors prison boxing league, I would just
Wow.
see that tomorrow. If you
Yeah.
showed me more of Creed's backstory, etc. Like there's a spin-off version. There's also a version where Creed 4 is a rematch of these two dudes. There's a version where they're best friends and they do tag team boxing. I don't know. I think another reason you're onto something too is in the fourth. I'm assuming there will be a fourth Creed movie. Like it's called Money. They love it out
Sure.
there in
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Sure.
I could see a version, like another reason why you have Creed lose this fight is because right now it's got a pretty sweet conclusion, and there's not a clear reason why he would fight in a Creed 4. That said, they're pretty good at coming up with reasons why people fight in these
Yeah.
movies. So, he's got the money, he's got the status, he's actually makes more money in a way if he's not fighting and focusing on the business moves. And now he's defeated his childhood. Like, if he loses, I think you're onto something, man. Also, the other thing, and then I think I'm out of thoughts on this movie, but
Yeah.
I would love to see more depth on Tessa Thompson's character. We see
Oh
depth
yeah.
in their relationship, and we see them go through some struggle, but she is a moral center. But I would
Mm-hmm.
love to see her have struggled more when she's like, yeah, I can't perform my own music anymore. And Jonathan Majors uses that information against her later, more or less, of trying to kind of get to her, but
Yeah.
also talking about like, I know what it's like to be on the sidelines. I But she's very much like doing what somebody does at a party. Like, but yeah, everything's good. I'm fine. My family's great. I have a daughter. I have so much to be lucky. Like,
Yeah.
I could
I'm
have seen
producing
more of
now.
her.
Yeah.
Right. Could have seen more of her struggling. Um, and that makes the dynamic with her and Creed a little more interesting overall. So I think there's a few things that they could do. At some point, then you're looking at a 3.5 hour movie, and we know they weren't going to allow that to happen.
No.
Maybe
Yeah.
these are things that the studio cut out of it. Not sure. At the end of the day, all it takes for me to really enjoy a boxing movie is some good boxing, and at least just not horrible, acting, writing, etc., to where it ruins it. And this movie
Yeah.
definitely accomplished that test for me. But the reason it gets 4 instead of higher, which I think the original Creed gets a 5 stars out of from me, something like that,
Mhm.
is for that exact reason. Like the development of the plot, the characters, etc. It was stilted.
Right. All right. Yeah. So as we close out our Creed talk and all that, you said you gave it a 4 out of 5 on your letterbox, right?
Yeah.
I gave it a 2.
No. 2. I know you
I
did. I
did.
don't want to. I
Yeah, I
Okay.
gave it a 2. I think I definitely was affected most by my issues with this movie. And I don't think, honestly, I don't think it's expectations either, because I wasn't really expecting much. I think the fact that I watched Creed 2 very soon before I saw the movie helped me realize kind of the change and shift in tone and what was missing that was there before. So I had like a comparison, right? Um I haven't watched the first Creed in a while, so I kind of want to go back and watch that too to see, maybe there was a progression, maybe there was a change or anything like that. But from what I remember, it was very similar in tone. Or I should say, Creed, the first Creed was still very Stallone heavy because Stallone had cancer and that was like a big thing in there and all that stuff like that. And then Creed 2, you could it was more 50-50 at that point. And then now Creed 3 was all Creed, like no Stallone whatsoever and all that. That's kind of like the progression I think happened. But I'm curious to see what will happen when I watch the first one again. But where would you rank this in the Creed franchise so far out of the 3 movies?
I mean, the fact you gave it 2 stars, to quote, Damien, Jonathan Major's character, "You're a coward, bro, and a fraud." But I would say this is my second favorite. Creed 1, directed by Ryan Coogler, the
Mhm.
legend, number 1. This one being number 2, and then number 2 being number 3. For those, Rocky, it's been a minute, but, I can very confidently off the top of which one's Mr. T in? That's the one I always mix up in the
That's
order.
the
He's in
third
3?
one. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna go 4, 2, 1, 3. Wait, 6 should be in there somewhere. Anyway, of the first original 5, that's what it would be. With 5 not even on the list, just erase it from history. And I'll put 6 like in the middle of that order. Um, but yeah, I'm going through 1, 3, 2 for the Creed movies. 1, 3, 2,
Okay.
top to bottom.
Uh,
What about you? You're going 1, 2, 3?
I'm going 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the first
Okay.
Creed is definitely the best. I thought it was not only just well directed, but just well acted all throughout. 2 does have its issues, but I still think the most of the movie was very strong, story wise, and all that. And of course, we know how I feel about 3 already because we talked about it. As far as like the original Rocky movies, I didn't never really thought about it, but I would probably say it would be uh let's see, Balboa was what, 6? Okay, so I would say 1, 6, 4, 2, 3, and then 5. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
The 5th, Rocky 5 is your favorite of the franchise because
no.
you have terrible movie taste, and I hate you
Oh
right
my
now
god.
because
That movie was painful.
so bad,
Really,
dude.
really damn
Honestly,
painful.
I'm trying to think of if there's things that happen in there that you need to know. Like, there's a couple things, but they're going to hint at it in Rocky 6. They're not counting on you to have seen Rocky 5 when they made that one. I
Yeah,
honestly would say, no matter how much of a completist you are, I'm OCD about this stuff. Skip it. Worst. I was in
yeah.
middle school. And I was like, this is the worst movie of all time.
Yeah, I would say the only thing you need to know from the fifth movie is that he has the
The kid.
restaurant and the kid who
Yeah.
later is portrayed by Milo. I always have a hard time pronouncing his last name. But yeah, but that's it. It's the
You don't even
restaurant
need to
and
watch
the
the movie
kid.
for that. Yeah.
No,
I think they even
yeah,
mentioned that later. So he's like,
yeah,
oh, something happened to my kid. I have a restaurant, whatever. I'm sure
yeah,
they addressed that in Rocky 6.
yeah,
um,
yeah. But that's it. But let us know again if we just went through our whole discussion and thoughts and talk about Creed 3. Um, Hopefully you've seen the movie. If not, we've spoiled a whole bunch of stuff for you. But let us know how you feel, what your thoughts are on Creed 3. What were your favorite moments? What were some moments that maybe you were questioning and all that? Are you in alignment with me or with Blake or whatever the case is? We'd love to hear your thoughts and have a discussion with you online because that's one of the best things about what we do here is that we get to talk and hear about hear from all of you out there. So definitely let us know. And how here's a fun thing. Let us know your ranking of not only the Creed movies but the Rocky movies as well. Love to know like where all that
yeah.
falls into place with all of you for sure. But that's been our episode of Movie Time. Before we close out this episode for the week, Blake, where can people find you online?
I know I've said it here, but I'm a bona fide sports and movie fan. I'm just now realizing that the poster behind me is a reference
That's
to a
right.
movie. Call Me by Your Name. It's an Elio's Room, and it's a reference to sports, the Roland Garros French Open tennis tournament. You can see all of my highly educated opinions as a movie connoisseur on the Letterboxd app with the screen name Last Name Wolf.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, and definitely follow Blake up on there because he has some really great and unique lists as far as Letterbox is concerned. And again, I've said this before, it's just we've had a lot of stuff to talk about, lately with all this stuff. The minute we get some free downtime, we're gonna definitely dedicate some episodes to some of your lists on Letterbox because those are definitely some interesting topics to talk about for sure. As for me, I could also be found on Letterboxd. You could see the screen name below, but on the screen you see all their screen names for you to find me on Twitter, Instagram, but most importantly here on YouTube. If you haven't done so yet, it doesn't cost you a thing. It only takes you a couple seconds. Hit that like button, Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit that notification bell to get notified every time a new episode is uploaded up on there. It really helps support the channel, the community, and helps you get recommended more content like this. Also helps spread the word too for other people looking for content like this. Audio listeners, if you're looking for an audio version of this episode and many others, just type in LOWKEY GEEK on your podcast platform of choice, where you get to download this and everything else we have up on there. And if it asks you for a rating, please leave an awesome rating if it prompts you to. That will be greatly appreciated, go a long way, and it will produce great karma and all that stuff like that. So, with all that being said, this has been Movie Time. I've been Rene. That's been Blake. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and stay sane. And we'll catch you all in the next one. All right. Peace out, everybody.